Greetings and welcome to today's webinar, the Business Advantages of SLS, TLS as a Service. We'll be discussing how you can integrate and automate SSL certificates into your services to differentiate your offerings and enhance your user experiences today. Presenting today will be myself, Christian Simcoe. I'm the Vice President of Marketing at GlobalSign, and Mike Boyle, our Partnerships Manager, will also join me. Mike has worked directly with many of our service provider customers, just like you.
Hi everyone, yeah, good to speak to you. Hopefully we're going to show you the amazing things that we can provide.
This webinar is presented by GlobalSign. We are a leading identity services provider and one of the most trusted certificate authorities. For some background on GlobalSign, we were founded in 1996. We have 8 global offices and 3 R&D centers, and a strong network of over 5,000 active partners. Our offerings include traditional digital certificate solutions, identity and access management, and solutions for securing the Internet of Everything, or IoE. For more about us, we welcome you to visit our website after today's webinar, and that's at www.globalsign.com. And before we get started with the presentation, I just want to go over a few housekeeping items. We welcome your interactions with us, and while the phones are on mute, we do encourage questions. If you have questions throughout the presentation, you can submit them using the questions box in the GoToWebinar control panel. We'll keep track and try to answer them all at the end of the webinar. We'll also be recording today's presentation, and we'll send you a link to the recorded webinar in a follow-up email to you. Here's our agenda for today's presentation. We will first talk about the growing demand for SSL or TLS in today's digital economy, the pressure that is on providers of cloud services to stand out from the competition. What is SSL, TLS as a service, and how you can benefit by integrating it into your offerings. We'll then highlight 3 customer use cases. Shopify, a leading e-commerce platform. Fastly, a leading content delivery network, or a CDN. And Unbounce, a marketing platform. And then we'll wrap things up and take your questions. Why is demand for SSL, TLS growing and encryption so important these days? I'll start addressing that now as we kick off the presentation. Traditionally, TLS, Transport Layer Security, or SSL, Secure Socket Layer, as many of us have known it, is used to protect data submissions or transactions between an end user's browser and the back-end server. Recently, more and more industry experts are suggesting that TLS should be used across the entire web. Some may suggest the movement was sparked by the release of Firesheet back in 2010, which showcased how encrypting only a user's initial login left the user open to HTTP session hijacking or sidejacking. Firesheet showed really just how easy it was to take control of someone else's account over a shared network. Moxie Marlinspike, a white hat and former Twitter engineer, provided this quote in a Wired article titled, "It's time to encrypt the entire internet," highlighting a stance on the importance of HTTPS on as many sites as possible. While many sites today still only use HTTPS to protect passwords when logging in or credit card info when making an online purchase, HTTPS should be a best practice to really encrypt everything. Not only does HTTPS encrypt information passing between servers and computers, it verifies that the content that you are downloading is actually coming from the source that you expect it to be coming from. So what's the reason for this shift? Well, besides the obvious encryption benefit, TLS also offers authentication and content integrity verification. Encryption protect all data transmitted from browser to server, whether that's personal or financial info that's submitted through a site, or the contents of a web page from eavesdroppers, such as malicious parties or even government surveillance. And then authentication. Ensure that the server you're connected to is actually the correct server and not an imposter. This is most commonly associated with phishing attempts, such as imposter banking sites asking for account details, but also apply to all content providers and sites in general. Without TLS, there's no way to ensure that that the Wikipedia article you're reading is actually coming from Wikipedia. And then content integrity. That ensures that data that is requested or submitted is actually what is being delivered. Unencrypted traffic can easily be intercepted to replace normal requests such as software downloads and video views with malicious files. So there are many business drivers for TLS, and the obvious ones are security, privacy, and trust. But there are also marketing and sales drivers which may not be as obvious that can have a major financial impact on your company, and we'll discuss those next. But first we'll discuss security, privacy, and trust, which are so important when conducting business online or working with a provider of a cloud service these days. Privacy and protection from surveillance from malicious parties are increasingly important to users, and we simply don't want our web behavior viewed without our permission. One study states that 90% of those surveys say controlling what information is collected about them is extremely important. And then trust is also very important. We want to do business and interact with services that we trust. In another study, only 42% of consumers believe companies are doing enough to protect their personal information online. And additionally, 98% of consumers look for website security indicators, with 21% saying they look at every time they visit a page. We want to know that that we are safe and secure when working with and interacting with your services. So I mentioned that there are some not so obvious business drivers that can have a big impact on your business. These are conversion rates, brand credibility, and searchability. Conversion rates, so what if you can improve your conversion rates or those of your customers if you are providing a service such as an e-commerce service? 84% of users stated in a survey that they would abandon a purchase if data was sent over an unsecured connection. And in many cases, double-digit increases in conversions are achieved when trust seals are added to forms. One company in particular that we'll discuss later in this presentation saw a jump of 42%. Now, what does brand credibility mean to you? What would happen to your business if your brand was compromised? Protecting your content from being tampered with should be an absolute must. And extended validation or EV TLS certificate can prominently display your company name in the URL, so your visitors can be confident that they are on a legitimate site and that your site is not a phishing or an imposter site. And then Google rankings and SEO. How would you like to rank higher in Google searches, and what would that mean to your business if you could help your customers rank higher? About 2 years ago, Google announced that TLS would play a role in their search marketing algorithm, regardless if the website collected personal information or not. Sites with HTTPS simply get a higher priority and rank higher. So what does this all mean to you as service providers of cloud-based services? Site operators, as well as their sales and marketing colleagues, are realizing the benefits of using TLS and are starting to turn to you for solutions and how you can help them. Security, privacy, and trust are essential to doing business in today's digital economy. And with more and more individuals and companies choosing cloud-based services to create, manage, deliver, and optimize their web properties and business functions, there's an opportunity for you to offer these same services for their web security needs as well. And then competition is fierce in this market. I don't really need to tell you that. As cloud services and applications, there's a lot of pressure to differentiate your offerings. integrating TLS into your services and offering encryption to your customers can provide an advantage today that can set you apart from your competitors and increase your customer base and resulting revenue streams. Now that I've introduced the need and some of the business drivers for TLS and SSL as a service, I'm going to hand it over to Mike to talk more about how this can benefit your business and share some of those real-world applications I touched upon in the agenda earlier.
Thanks very much, Christian. So as partnerships manager, it's my job to kind of help you guys implement a solution that fits in with your business drivers and how you want to increase and improve the packages that you offer. From our element, it's security and TLS or SSL as a service. So many service providers have been offering TLS or SSL as an add-on option for years. I'm sure many of you do now. You will resell SSL to customers, and sometimes that means, for example, directing customers to preferred SSL or TLS vendor partners, or even reselling the certificates yourselves. But what we want to do is we're introducing a completely new approach with this service, so TLS as a service. So what's the difference? What we're talking about is a true integration, adding it in, TLS built into your product offering and available to all of your customers. We want to create a scenario where there's no need for them to opt in or even really think about certificates at all. So why would you integrate TLS into your service? There's this whole driver behind, as Christian was touching on earlier, to enable encryption by default into services. So what we want to do is take away the responsibility from customers to opt in and instead include it as a standard within your offering, and this will help create a more secure, safer internet for everyone. You as a provider gain a competitive advantage. You're going to be able to stand out from the competition, not just by bundling security services into your existing packages and offerings, but by seamlessly integrating them. So we want to create this, your customers will love you. Of course they love you for your products or services that you currently offer. What we want to do is, through this service, is improve the customer experience. We want to offer a superior user experience by keeping your customers in your platform rather than you having to push them away to another vendor for their security needs. We want to free the customers from any technical burdens. We don't want them to have to understand the burden of the technical knowledge and certificate management that allows them to, and we want your customers to focus on their own growing business rather than have to understand how to create, install a certificate. So this service is available to service providers across a broad spectrum. So we're going to shortly show you some customers as Christian touched on. But this is available to anybody that does X as a service. So whether that's CDNs, CRMs, e-commerce platforms, website and e-shop builders, cloud containers, and so on, this service is available across this whole range of providers.
Yeah, and Mike, not only will your customers will love you, but you will love your customers back in return. Adding TLS as a service is a huge opportunity for you. You can gain that key business advantages and competitive differentiation that we talked about earlier. And then, as Mike described about the user experience and keeping your users in your platform can really help you improve your customer retention and add many more happy customers to your roster.
Yeah, so how can you actually do this? We're talking about implementing a service as part of your packages. So first of all, you're going to need to partner with a certification authority that's capable of supporting this type of solution. So whoever you partner with should be able to support the following: scalability and flexibility. They need to offer a range of licensing models accommodating small and large businesses with high volume certification services, for large deployments and future growth. There needs to be automation, and GlobalSign's end-to-end provisioning process is fully automated, which requires little or no customer interaction. This is what we want to drive through your service, just like you guys do with your current product offerings. Volume and velocity. As you scale up and your customer base grows, you're going to need to issue up to millions of certificates per day, perhaps, if they're short life or long life. You need a system that's highly tuned for parallel infrastructure, and our system is able to issue those millions of certificates, and it can issue up to 2,000 certificates per second. So whether you're small or large, we've got the scalability and growth system in place. What about variety? There are many different certificate types. So as part of this service, we wanted to make sure that you got the full range of SSL or TLS assurance levels, from domain validation for basic or personal sites, organization validation for businesses, or even EV for companies that want to clearly tie their brand identity to their web presence and have that green address bar displayed to increase consumer trust. That address bar contains their company name or their brand name, and it's important to shout from the rooftops that they are who they say they are. But there's also different types of use cases. Multi-use and multi-domain certificates are also available to combat impending IP shortages, or just to fit in with the way you handle your infrastructure. So what we're going to run through now is TLS as a service, and give you some flavors of our customer stories.
So who can use TLS as a service? And it's really anyone providing a service on the internet, from e-commerce platforms like Shopify, content delivery networks, or CDNs like Fastly, and website builders and online marketing platforms like Unbounce. Mike will now go into details on each one of these and how they are benefiting with TLS certificate issuance services integrated directly into their service offerings.
So Shopify, they're a leading e-commerce platform provider. I'm sure they're very well known in the consumer world and as a software as a service. Well, they wanted to ensure that all transaction on customer sites was secured with TLS. But they didn't want to rely on merchants to understand the process and the order process and to manage certificates themselves. It's very mundane. So by integrating TLS, their customers can now get everything they need for their online store directly through Shopify. It is the one-stop shop for all these services. Shopify retains control over the user experience. Obviously, they do that by keeping their customers in their platform, as we've said, rather than pushing them out to an SSL vendor or a reseller. Customers don't have to worry about certificate management, and they gain a competitive advantage. You gain a competitive advantage for them by ensuring that you deliver all of the services end to end that make up this secure user experience. So for them, they had some key solution aspects. They had a sizable customer base, so the need for high volume and velocity was important. They needed to deploy SSL to over 200,000 customer sites in just 1 week. And they needed to scale to accommodate their future needs. They needed a process that would allow them to grow and not have to change the architecture as they went on. So Fastly is another one. They're a CDN, as you may know, and they say right on their website, protecting your customers' identities, transactions, and the integrity of your website requires strong encryption. Fastly, they wanted to make encryption available for all customers without the burden of certificate management or negatively affecting site performance, which in the CDN world you'll understand is an obvious focus. So like Shopify, they also needed a solution that could issue a high volume of certificates quickly, but another key component for them was the ability to add and remove domains as part of this service. When they integrated TLS as a service from GlobalSign, Their customers get all of the benefits of SSL without having to understand the certificate management themselves, as we've said. Fastly, again, retains control over their certificate configuration, but they can do it in a way that doesn't affect performance. For these guys, their key solution aspect was automation, an in-house tool that talks to GlobalSign's API to automate much of the certificate management process. But they needed that flexibility as well. I mean, Fastly has a very dynamic customer base, as I'm sure some of you do as well. So the ability to add and remove domains on the fly and issue certificates, it's essential to them. This is what our service is offering. Another service provider flavour, Unbounce. This is a marketing tool that enables marketing teams to build, publish and A/B test landing pages without IT bottlenecks. So since their service is based on landing pages, which more often than not is designed specifically to collect some type of user information, encrypting that data and securing that data was a key driver. So we mentioned earlier that SSL is now on marketing radar, thanks to the evidence that it can boost conversion rates, just like Kristen outlined earlier, and Google's announcement that it could help search engine rankings. You know, these are key considerations for you guys when adopting this type of system. So it doesn't really matter whether you're a startup, a young technology. This service is scalable, it's flexible to accommodate any of your growth rates. So our TLS as a service is designed to make everyone happy, everyone that's a service provider. Your customers will get TLS without the management headaches. Their end users are protected, and at the end of the day, that's what this thing is all about, providing an ability for end users to have a safe, securing browsing experience. And of course, you're going to be able to enhance your business offering, a one-stop shop for their technology and service and security needs.
Great, thanks, Mike. I want to thank you for assisting me on today's webinar. That's going to wrap things up for today's presentation. We do have some questions that have come in, and we want to spend the next few minutes on answering your questions. I just want to remind everyone once again that if you do have a question, please enter it into the GoToWebinar questions field in the toolbar, and we'll address those. If you do want to interact with us after these presentations, we do encourage you to visit our website at www.globalsign.com. You can request more information and check out many of our white papers and additional pieces of content that will help you make a decision on whether you want to engage with us on your TLS as a service needs. So our first question is when you talk about user experience, can you elaborate on how adding encryption into our service will provide a better experience? Mike, can you discuss this a little bit?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, no worries. Well, I suppose there's a number of ways that this TLS service is going to improve user experience. So the first one is an inclusive component of the package that a service provider offers. It's really important that you don't have to send them outside your platform, as we've touched on, and keeping them all in control. It's going to offer a system, I suppose, that where there's little or nothing to do for the user. I mean, they don't have to do anything as part of their mechanism of onboarding their package. A certificate can be provided and installed and become available on their service as soon as they onboard. It's just automatic, and it can automatically happen. There's nothing for them to do. I suppose if you wanted to upgrade maybe the customers to say an OV or an extended validation certificate, there's a couple of steps you guys may know to go through with them, but still keeping into this automation phase, then we can truncate it down into a couple of steps of interaction just to cover off the consent and the subscriber agreement. I suppose also, keeping providing services like this to your users, keeping them as part of your service is kind of integral to what you guys do anyway. I mean, the services you're offering, whether you're a CDN or you're an e-commerce platform, security is a natural element. Keeping them all involved in your system, it basically is brilliant for the user experience, the fact that they don't have to do much.
Great, thanks, Mike. We've got one other question here that's come in. How are efforts like Let's Encrypt affecting SSL and TLS? Mike, I can start. I can start the answer here, and if you want to chime in, we can further highlight on it.
Yeah.
We actually embrace what Let's Encrypt's doing. Let's Encrypt is really validating and highlighting the need for SSL and TLS in the marketplace. We have it's actually opened up much more opportunities for certificate authorities, just like GlobalSign, to be establishing our services to service providers to offer more of the higher assurance certificate needs, such as OV and EV certificates. Mike, anything else to add on to that?
No, I mean you're absolutely right, Christian. I mean, Let's Encrypt, the kind of the ethos behind it is brilliant for everybody. You know, it's evangelising that message to encrypt everything and making sure all of us. I mean, each of us, we browse the internet ourselves. You know, so having a secure experience is just as important for us as it is for everyone. But like you said, the ability for us to create an automated process to offer all forms of certificates, whether they are our cloud SSL, where you could have many of your customers in a certificate and be able to swap them out back and forth, or the higher assurance certificates. We run an end-to-end service that can work alongside Let's Encrypt, or if that's your flavour. But of course, we can offer the whole thing. We offer domain validation too.
Yeah, that's the benefits to our flexibility. We can work alongside Let's Encrypt, or we can, or as you just described, Mike, we can offer the whole end-to-end solution also. So a couple other questions. Can you describe your flexible licensing model and how that could help us? Kind of an interesting transition.
Yeah, I'll grab this one, Christian.
Okay.
Just like we were saying, look, the whole point of making it flexible is to offer this the different technologies, whether it's a hosted service, our APIs, the different certificate types and assurance levels, from domain validation up to extended validation. But it's also it's also taken into account that sometimes service providers, you may want to start at a lower volume and grow into the service. You may want to hit up all of your customer base. It really does depend on how you want to adopt the service. And so we're kind of not putting up barriers of adoption. If you are a young technology or a startup, or you have a big customer base, then for us, we want to understand what you want to achieve, and through our solutions like this, we're going to help you implement that.
Great, thanks, Mike. It looks like we have one last question that's come in. If you do have any other additional questions, please raise them now, and we'll hopefully answer them before we end today's presentation. So it looks like our last question would be, how do you get started with integrating certificate services from GlobalSign into our services? Mike, do you want to field that one?
Yeah, sure. Well, it's very simple. I mean, we've obviously got a number of options, like I was saying, our hosted services, APIs, and the like. But every one of you guys as a provider, you've got a way, an idea in your head of what you would like to do and the goals you want to achieve to adopt it. So simply, we want to set up a conversation with you, understand what your drivers are and your needs are, just like we showed you with Fastly, Shopify, and Unbounce. We go through this sort of consultative phase with you just to kind of get what you need to do. And you can email me directly, mike.boyle@globalsign.com. You can interact with us via the GlobalSign website, on our LinkedIn pages or Twitter feeds, and we'll gladly help you understand what your requirements are, help build a picture of how it can be integrated and automated, and then we'll get started. We can do a POC.
Well, it looks like that was our last question. It looks like we're going to wrap up today's webinar. Wanted to thank everyone for participating today and for your questions. Mike, and thank you for assisting me on the presentation today. And that will end our presentation. Thank you.
Thank you.